everybody. I'm going to switch you to speakerphone JT. Go ahead, give me a little audio, see how you sound. JT, hello?
Testing, 1, 2, testing.
Can you hear me all right?
I'm here. Testing, 1, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I can hear you okay, yes.
All right, good, good. I'm going to have to keep you on speakerphone so that everybody can hear you.
4:56 p.m.
We got a few minutes. I'm going to give a few notes. I usually start it right at the top of the hour, even though we're already live in Beep Ball Nation. I usually wait until right at the top of the hour, and I play a little music, JT. I don't play it too long, but I play it a little loud, try to start with a little energy, and I got to be honest, I'm a little embarrassed to do my little childish antics right in front of you. But I think you'll make it through all right.
That's fine, man. Gotta get the energy up. You know, I'm going to be talking a little bit quieter than I might normally, because when I talk b-ball, man, I get excited, and then my voice gets up in it. But as I discussed with you earlier, I'm getting over a little bug here, and my voice has been in and out on me, so I'm just going to try to conserve it so I can make it through the entire show here.
Before people start getting concerned, JT is already confirmed it's not the vid. He hasn't caught the vid, just some allergies bothering him. So don't get freaked out.
I know it's something that
4:57 p.m.
No, it's not the virus. Fortunately, it's just a normal thing that happens to me just about yearly. Get a little bit of laryngitis. My throat's not even sore and things. It's just, I got probably like a little post-nasal drip or something going on. But
it's all good. I'm going to knock out some...
kind of saving my voice to hopefully we'll make it through this, yep.
All right, I'm going to knock out some pre-show notes from last week's show, a couple updates for the audience. First, a few people reached out to me, a lot of people reached out saying they enjoyed the defensive show last week. I was really proud of that show. I'm glad people enjoyed it. A few have asked if I have the defensive stuff written out that I can email folks or put it in Beep Ball Nation, much like we did with like Mikey's workout. I don't, but I'm going to. I should have done it already. So I will get to that this week so that people can have that in their repertoire, if I said that correctly. And then also an update on the YouTube stuff. Obviously, we're not on YouTube tonight. I do plan to have that settled this week. And here, what my plan is because I'm going to use the YouTube channel for other stuff, not just this Beep Ball show. But also, the Beep Ball show we've been doing is so, it's for experts, really. People who really know the game. We're trying to get better. So my first live show on the YouTube channel is going to be What is Beep Ball Show, that I'm going to do with a couple other people to just kind of introduce the sport for people that just happen by the YouTube channel and want to know why we're talking about this World Series, want more information about it. And then after that, I will start uploading, because I've saved all the previous shows. I'll start uploading the previous shows to the YouTube channel. And then from that point on, we'll still be doing the show live here in Beep Ball Nation, but also on YouTube, so that people who aren't on Facebook will also have a shot at listening. Let me check the time.
5 p.m.
We are at the top of the hour. JT, plug your ears, because I got to crank it up a little bit. My little Huggy Bear is blocking the volume. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah! Welcome back to another week of the Beep Ball Blues Show. I've been having so much fun doing this show. What we've been trying to do is get players better at their game, get teams better at their game, and I feel like every show we've done so far has given every player out there that opportunity. I feel like we've been putting out good content, and this week is not going to be any different. You know, at the beginning when I said that I wasn't going to touch on hitting a lot because I didn't want to sit up here giving mechanics and stuff, telling people how I swung, because that might not be the way your own team wants you to swing. Well, a few people, more than one, reached out and said, hey, you know, you should talk to JT Herzog, because JT has all kinds of things that fit right into what we're trying to do with this show. His ideas are things you can do with a bat in your hand, things you could do at home without a bat. And so, without further ado, I'd like to introduce this week's guest. I said it earlier, he's a Chicago Comet legend and an NBBA treasure. JT Herzog. JT, welcome to the Beep Ball Blues Show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you very much. I appreciate giving the opportunity to come on your show. And, I want to talk a little bit about hitting today and some of the things that you can do. A lot of people say that you can only practice your hitting with a bat in your hands, and I would totally disagree with that. I think it starts basically with the fundamentals and having a good foundation. So, excuse me, I'm going to get a drink already here.
No worries. No worries. And don't, something, but before you completely dive into your thing and while you get your breath there, something I always do before we dive into the week's content is I like the guest to introduce himself a little bit, for people, everybody that's been around the game knows and loves JT, but not everybody listening has been around forever. So JT, how did you find Beep Baseball? Hello? Oh, there you are.
Because my son's, I got involved, my son John got involved with the Comets in 2000, and John was born blind from birth with optic nerve hypoplasia. And so my first, I would say maybe the first year and a half, actually 2 years, I was just out there as a father, as a spectator, kind of watching. Practice was far enough from our house where it wasn't efficient for me to go home and then come back and get him, so I would just stick around and kind of watch what was going on. I was a coach at the time for my younger son, Adam, who doesn't have any visual problems, and he was a real good baseball player, and I was coaching a travel team with him, and so I just sat there and I observed and slowly got involved a little more as I was just sitting there. I was like, hey, you guys are doing it, can I go over there and work with them on this or do that? And I kind of slowly got involved to where I ended up becoming the head coach in 2003.
A lot of people.
That's how I got my start.
A lot of people don't know this, at least the newer people, but before like 2006, the way the World Series was played was, we played the first day of round robins just like we do now, but at the end of the round robin, like the top two teams out of each bracket would go into the championship round, but the bottom two teams of each bracket went into the consolation bracket, and the highest place they could finish at that year's World Series would be 11th once they fell into the consolation bracket. I guess that would change depending on how many teams were in the tournament, but at that time we averaged between 15 and 20, so usually the top 10 teams would go into the championship bracket. But you're the one, teams that are new to the game, that never played under those conditions, don't realize that it was always the way it is now, to where every team at the World Series has technically whatever a legitimate chance at winning the World Series. I mean I couldn't find the right words. I only hesitate because obviously when there's 24 teams, not every team's going to win not every team's ready to win a championship. But technically every team that enters the World Series now has a shot, at least, at no matter how bad the first day goes, they could still get up on day 2 and have a shot at their dream. And so it was you that came up with that new format for everybody to go in the championship bracket. And I've heard a little bit of talk over the years, but I've hardly ever heard any talk for the most part about going back to the way it used to be. So obviously your idea has been a success, JT.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and for me, it was just a matter of, in some ways, just an outside looking in as far as some common sense things where it solved a lot of problems. It solved the thing of doing that random draw every year where you could possibly get 3 or 4 top teams all in one bracket, and then one of them is automatically eliminated. It also I didn't like the fact that you're spending all this money, and then some of the teams are out of it like on Wednesday or Thursday, and then you got to stick around to Saturday for the banquet and all the rest of that. So now the new system allows everybody to play all the way through, and everybody's playing pretty much all the way through Friday with the championship on Saturday. So again, a little bit more better use of our resources, our funding rather, which we all struggle with,
right?
And also, it kind of gives you the teams a little bit of a chance. You're going to meet some teams that are out of your class early on, so you can kind of gauge yourself as where you are with the top teams. But as the tournament progresses, throughout the placement brackets, you're playing teams that are much more compatible to your style.
Right.
You get to finish off on that. Hey, these are teams that we're kind of competitive with. So you kind of get the mixture. I know a lot of people. There's blowouts. Well, you get some blowouts in every type of seeding type situation. So anyway, I just, like I said, to me, it was just kind of a natural flow, a better way of kind of doing things, and I'm glad everybody likes it.
In a small way, the two of us combined as far as the format now, and I say small way because my part in this was very small. If it wasn't me, it would have been somebody else. But after 2006 was the first year that we went under your new format, and it ended up we ended up playing more games. The tournament overall had more games, and the fields were really fast in 2006, so we had long games, and like people were getting back to the hotel. We hadn't switched to 5 days yet; it was still 4 days, and we were getting back at the hotel at like 8, 9 o'clock at night, just playing like 3 games. So,
I remember that, yeah.
And actually, your team, Chicago, the Comets, and my team, the Dogs. We were the 2 teams that came up in the losers bracket and played for the 3rd place game, and we had to play that game Saturday morning before the championship after each having played 3 games on Friday. I think when we played you, that was our 10th game, and then the championship game, I think, was the 11th. And had we beat Taiwan in that first game, we would have had to have played a 12th game. So the following year in 2007, during General Assembly, we were trying to figure out how to take out some of the games, and they were going back and forth. Like on Tuesday, we would still have General Assembly plus all the captains meetings, and plus play a couple games. It's like I was the one that stood up. I was like, "There's no way we can." Tuesday and Wednesday are always the busiest days of the whole tournament. We can't combine that into one day. And it was me that suggested that we just move everything up one day and made the whole event like one day longer. So that's why I say I had a small role in how we do it now. But if it wasn't me that saw the wisdom in that, go ahead.
Oh, I know, and I was behind you 100% on that, and I remember getting up and speaking to support you in that, and starting the one day earlier, and it made all the difference in the world, because then it kind of relaxes everything a little bit better. Yeah, it was just about giving every chance. I just didn't like the fact that some teams spent all this money, and on day one after the round robin, they had absolutely no chance at winning the championship.
Yeah,
as you recall, in 2003 when we won it, we won that tiebreaker with Cleveland by I forget what it was, 300 of a percentage point in the tie-breaking system, and we went on to win the championship. They went on to take the consolation bracket, and who knows what would have happened if Cleveland would have been allowed to participate up in the in the entire thing. It could have been a different. I'm glad they didn't take our championship, but it could have happened that way. And it was just all about giving everybody a chance to have that opportunity, as slim as it might be. You still, even after the round robins, which is our way of seeding, because we don't have a national type league where you feed in. Everybody basically just pays their entry fee, and if you can afford to make it to the World Series. So I think it was a good step, and I think extending it to extra day was a good step. And as long as as a league we continue to try to keep moving forward, I think we'll be all right.
100% in agreement with you. I just wanted to, I needed it since I had you. I got to give credit where the credit's due. All right, JT, let's dive into some hitting. What do you have for folks? What kind of stuff can people work on?
Well, I know we're limited on time here, so here's what I think the best way for me to do this. I kind of want to go over some of the fundamentals, give you maybe like an overall structure, at least my philosophy, which is pretty generic in the sense that it's just based on good, solid fundamentals of hitting from all levels, whether it's T-ball to the major leagues, and with B-ball being in between there. And so I kind of go through a quick foundation, and then I can, depending on time, go back and break down each little individual section, because as we build our foundation, we have different sections, and then possibly even be able to give some things that players can work on while we're here. A lot of us are in home detention here, and things that you can do to work on your swing without actually swinging a bat. And so I think if that's okay, that's just kind of how I see it. And if something's not making sense, I thought a little bit about how I would try to describe some things that I would normally just physically show somebody. And I'll do my best to kind of visualize that. So if I'm getting off track or whatever, and just stop. If something doesn't make sense, I'll be happy to try to clarify, all right?
All right, you got it.
All right. So, having said that, basically a swing, everybody thinks that, a lot of people anyway, they think that, your swings involves your arms and your legs to some degree, whatever. And I just tell you, it's the biggest key that I see in your swing is your balance. All right? Your balance that's starting at your feet, your knees, your hips, your torso, your hands and your arms, even your shoulders and your head come into play. And it all has to be in balance. And in order to do that, now a lot of people, they'll start out with good balance at the beginning of their swing. But you have to maintain good balance throughout the entire swing. That's your setup, through your swing itself, and then with your follow through. And if you can stay in balance throughout that entire process, then you're going to have a good swing. I know a lot of, especially like with new players, they're all, am I making contact? Am I making contact? And I always tell everybody, timing is the easiest thing to fix. It is by far the easiest thing to fix, but that's what most new players and a lot of people get caught up on is the timing. Are they making contact and things? And my players can attest to this. I don't look at contact when I'm working with them and we're doing a little BP. I'm looking at good swings. I want good swings because if you can consistently make a good swing, you're going to have success. You know, your pitcher's got to make good pitches.
Right.
You have to make a good swing. You both have to be on the same page to succeed. And too often everybody just gets caught up on, am I making contact? And if I'm not making contact, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. And that's absolutely the wrong way to look at it. Because think about it, you can make a good swing and not make contact because the pitcher effed up, right?
Right.
They're not perfect.
Right.
They're not machines.
Right.
And they're going to make bad pitches. Every one of them does. It's just the nature of the game. If everybody made a perfect pitch and a perfect swing, how fun would that be, right? So what I want to talk about mostly is about balance and how we get that balance and some of the things that I see are the common mistakes for a lot of the visually impaired community, because you can definitely tell those that have had sight and have actually physically seen a swing, and those that have been like my son, who was blind at birth and had never seen a swing, can't visualize it in their mind. They can only go by feel. So as a coach, too, I'm assuming we're going to have some coaches listen. There's some you gotta take that into consideration too as you're helping your players. So I'm going to start out with a couple things of what I see that some of the biggest problems with players that I see, the most common issues. One is that they're not on the balls of their feet. Okay, now in just about any sport, you have to have what they call a good athletic position, and whether you're fielding on defense or whether you're in the batter's box, you cannot be sitting back on your heels. And I know raising a blind son, when they're taught traveling, they're taught be sure-footed, be careful. Take your time, and beep ball, there's none of that, right? We got to run with total abandon. We got to dive on the ground. We're not, being safe by any means.
Oh, all orientation and mobility instruction. Sorry, I'm just gonna say all orientation and mobility instruction. That all goes out the window when you're on the beep ball field. None of that matters.
Exactly, but they bring some of those habits with them, and being back on your heels is one of them. So the first thing that you need to start practicing is getting up in a good athletic position, even in the batter's box, and so you got to be up on the balls of your feet.
Right.
And so one of the things that I do with my players as a drill, I have this a board. It's maybe about a half an inch thick high. It's like a 1x6. Okay. So it's about 6 inches deep, and then wide enough to account for a batter stance. And what I'll have my players do is I'll have them step on that board halfway. So in other words, the board is their heels are on the ground, and the front half of their foot is on the board. And then we're going to get up on that board and get in a good position with your heels up off the ground.
Oh, okay.
As soon as you do that, your leg muscles are going to start twitching. All right.
Right.
Because you're not up on your tippy toes, you're on the balls of your feet. And so for those at home, here's something you can practice. You don't need to get a board if you don't have a board. If you have a board, great. Don't get anything too high. I don't want anybody turning any ankles and getting hurt and having coaches calling me, you hurt my player.
So about an inch. About an inch. Is an inch about what you recommend?
No more than about an inch.
Okay.
Half an inch to an inch.
Okay.
I mean, good. So I walked around my house, and you could if you have any transitions in your house where it goes from, say, maybe a hardwood floor or tile to carpeting, even that little bit.
Okay.
You go get in there, get the balls of your feet up on the carpet, lift up your heels off the ground, and get in your batting stance, which your feet should be at least shoulder width apart. And there's some variation in there. So and let me just say right now is a good point to bring this up. Everything I say is not actually gospel. It's just kind of like guidelines because some batters are going to be better with a wider stance than others. But generally speaking, you're going to have your feet, at least shoulder width apart.
Okay.
And the reason for this drill is to get the players used to not having their heels on the ground. Now, a lot of the drills I do are kind of like an over-exaggeration, too, because it just trains the muscles. Because obviously when you're in the batter's box, you don't have to have your heel an inch off the ground, right? I tell my players all you really need is to be able to slide a piece of paper underneath the back cleats of your spikes, right?
Right.
In other words, just get that weight up on the balls of your feet and off of your heels.
Right.
Off of your heels is the key. Get that weight forward, a slight bend in your knees, and have your weight forward just a little bit. Staying with the feet. The other thing is, and this may date us a little bit here, Neil. Do you remember the dance, the twist?
I do I'm almost 52 years old, so it wasn't a popular dance by the time I was growing up, but I do remember seeing it when I had eyesight until 1979, so I do remember seeing it.
Okay.
Right.
So you see that with the twist, it's just about people that are up on the balls of their feet, they're shaking side to side, shaking their hips, their heels are going side to side. And so one of the other drills that I do, especially with my new players, is to, I say do the twist.
Do the twist.
And there again, it's just a matter of to get the weight off your heels and shift both of your heels to the right, both of your heels to the left, both of your heels to the right in unison, both to the left. And again, all I'm trying to do here is work with them having that weight on the balls of their feet and yet being able to keep their balance. Okay?
Yeah. I can share a personal story to where this makes a lot of sense to me because, we were talking earlier, so I am somebody who was sighted, who started playing beep ball later. So I kind of had a natural uppercut to my swing and stuff. That wasn't something that I had to be taught. But something that came up towards the end of my career, really, in the last 3-4 years of my playing, that Mike Finn and Don Robinson both kind of keyed in on with me is when I was running sprints, I was running more flat-footed. I wasn't getting up on the balls of my feet and running. And I don't know, at what point I started doing that. I don't know why I did that. But it took a lot of work on my end of even jogging in place or anything, you know what I mean? Practicing getting up on the balls of my feet like you're talking about. Because just like you said, even though I was running sprints and I was working out all the time, once I was using those different muscles, my legs would be really shaky from, just trying to get used to being up on the balls of my feet. So I'm totally with you on the importance of this, not just for batting, but for defense, for running bases, for all of it. This is good stuff, JT.
Comment section. Christina Smurs. Hey, JT, Rich, and Chris here.
Oops, sorry. I just
Double tap
bumped
to
a
react to
button on
reply.
my
Double tap and
phone.
hold for more options.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. I accidentally bumped a button on my phone, and I saw a comment from Christina Smurth. Her and she and Richard Schultz are listening. They said hello. So you got some of your teammates listening to you.
Well, hello to them. Well, a lot of this is going to be old hat for them. And a lot of it, I should just make a recording of it because I say it so often. I forget this, but
we're doing that right now.
Again, it's just about it's about balance, and it's also going to come into play a little bit as I move up our body, right? Because just like you're going to build a skyscraper or building, you got to start with that good foundation, and it starts with the feet. It starts with the balance. It starts with being able to rotate your feet, get off those heels, and be able to rotate those feet and keep your balance. So that's why I said that twist drill is really good. Standing up on something that's just a little bit elevated,
Right.
and then get your heels, and then you could even, try to squat down into your stance and move around a little bit. When I'm at practice with players, I'll take it. I'll kind of push them forward, push them backward a little bit. Most people are good side to side, but pushing them forward and backward just to kind of really make them work their muscles. This reminds me of something. Before I go any further, I'm going to a couple terms here that I use when I say front side and back side. Now, what I mean by that is because you have left-handed and right-handed people rather than saying right-handed, and then people got it in their mind say, okay, that means left-handed for me. When I say backside, I'm talking if I split your body down the middle from your nose, down through your belly button, the backside is toward the catcher.
Right.
So if you're right-handed, that'll be your right hand. If you're left-handed, that'll be your left hand. And when I say front side, that's toward the pitcher.
Right.
Okay. Just so we're familiar with
right.
my terminology here.
All right.
So that's one thing I see with the players specifically is the weight back on their heels. The second thing I see is the fact that because they have the weight on their heels and they can't twist their feet, it locks up their hips. All right?
Okay.
And by locking up your hips, you slow down your swing because you can't follow through. And if you slow down your swing, you lose the bat speed, and that's what it's all about. We're looking to try to get the maximum bat speed out of your swing as possible.
Right.
So, on that note, with the hips, and I always like to demonstrate this to people because they're like, what are you talking about? Free up your hips and clear your hips. And anybody that's at home right now, if you have the means of standing up, you can even do this as I'm talking. I have to do a couple things. I say, first of all, stand with normal, your toes pointed straight ahead, and with your feet firmly planted in the ground. Rotate your hips as far as you can both ways. I say, pretend like there's a steel rod. I'm going to put the steel rod through your spine and out your butt and into the ground, okay? And I want you to rotate on that imaginary steel rod and rotate as far as you can both ways with your feet in neutral positions, okay? Then I want you to take and do that same thing and point both of your toes in like pigeon toes, as they call it. Both toes point in the middle and do the same thing. And then take both of your toes and excuse me, I'm trying to go too fast. Both of your toes and point them outwards.
Right. And
you do the same thing. And you'll see at what point are your hips binding up on you. Okay? And I'll tell you what the answer is. The answer is if you are a right-handed hitter, you basically want to have both of your toes pointed slightly toward the pitcher. In other words, your heels are back toward the catcher, your toes are to the pitcher, and now do that same thing, and you're going to see how much easier your hips will rotate through.
Right.
Okay? Because if your feet is not, if you plant that heel in the ground and then try to rotate over your front side, it's going to either your hip is going to stop you from rotating, or it's going to put pressure on your knee. All right? We don't want the pressure on the knee. So you have to be able to free up the hips. In order to free up the hips, you have to allow your feet to rotate. You have to allow your knees to rotate through and let your hips clear. Because ideally, when you finish your swing, you want your belly button pointing right at the pitcher.
Right.
Both of your knees will be pointing at the pitcher. And if you see a lot of players in the league, they have that front foot where the heel is down and they can't finish their swing. And one easy way of telling is if they let go of the bat with their backhand because the momentum is going through and the body stops and that bat wants to keep on going, it's putting all kinds of pressure on your knee and on your hip because you're not allowing that rotation to happen with your hips and your knees. So a beginner pointer tip that I would do if you have any new players or players that are having a little trouble rotating, because that twist move sounds like it's an easy move, but it's difficult for some players to get the hang of that. So what I'll do is I'll just start them in a position where their toes are, maybe 45 degrees or so pointed toward their pitcher to give them that little bit of a head start. Okay,
Right.
Especially with those players that don't take that step when they swing. Right? There's two categories. There's the batters that take a step when they swing, and those that don't. And those that don't, especially, you need to get that toe pointed toward the pitcher a little bit. You have your batters that do take a step. I always tell them when you step and you take that toe and point it right at your pitcher's belly button. Okay, so that again, it's enforcing the fact that we want that the hip to be able to clear and that swing to follow through, so we can keep our bat speed up.
Are you okay?
I call that squashing it. But
Yeah, we'll dive into squashing the bug in a second. I want to go back just for a second. Are you okay with the people who don't take a step? Because I would think that would be something I would try to coach a player up on. Do you find that it's okay the people who don't?
I do. Yeah, I do in the sense, especially with the new players. To me, taking the step is something that's easy to add once they have the good fundamentals down and good balance, and then it's just like the timing. Adding the step to a swing that's got a solid base is a lot easier than to try to do it from the beginning if that player is struggling with that. Some players don't struggle with that.
Right.
So this is an individual thing.
Okay.
But there are a lot of players in the league that do not take a step with that front foot. Ideally, you do want to take a step, even if it's as much as just picking your foot up and putting it down.
Right, just to generate power.
But, yeah, exactly. It's a trigger mechanism for a lot of people. So, no, my ultimate goal is to get you to take that step. Okay. But there's good players, even good players, and I don't want to call people out necessarily here, but this is in a good sense because this kid's gone on, he's taken the league by storm, and that's Eric Rodriguez.
Right.
When I first started working with him, I backed him down. I said, stop the step, because he was just trying to do too much all at once.
Right.
I said, forget that step. Let's get this stuff down. Let's get you rotating. Let's get you doing this. And it wasn't long before he was able to add that step in and become a good solid hitter, all the way around, with not only consistency with a bit of pop in his bat as well.
Right.
But he started out without taking a step. Now his brother was taking a step right from the get-go. So you got to kind of cater it a little bit to the athlete that you're dealing with.
That's fair.
But ultimately, yes, you want them taking a step if they can, but especially the brand new players, if they're struggling with any portion of the balance or rotating of their feet or letting their hips free up, then I'll put them in a good position to where they start with your toe pointed at the pitcher, and don't worry about taking the step. And now it's one less thing for them to think about, and we can work on some of the other things, because again, adding that step once they have a good foundation, easy to do. Timing on pitches, easy to do once you have a good swing. But if you're trying to add those things and you don't have a good foundation, you're just setting yourself up